Tonight, many American farmers, already under financial strain, are facing growing concerns. President Trump's threats to deport millions of undocumented immigrants are casting uncertainty over the agricultural labor force. On top of that, new tariffs risk further economic pain, especially for farmers in Iowa. The latest trade tensions with China have left key agricultural exports sitting idle, resulting in major financial losses for local producers. "I'm hoping for either another pause to get me through the harvest," said one farmer, or for a deal to be reached with the countries involved. But this crisis goes far beyond tariffs and immigration. America's farmers are now fueling a rebellion that's shaking the foundation of the modern food system. Thousands of tractors are stalled at the border, crops are rotting in the fields, and the once untouchable agricultural giant, John Deere, has gone completely silent. But this isn't just about machines breaking down, it's a symptom of a broken system. What began as a quiet standoff at a remote checkpoint has escalated into a widespread uprising. From Iowa to Sonora, farmers are reclaiming their power, and the effects are being felt across global supply chains, financial markets, and even family dinner tables. It started under the guise of an inspection, but anyone paying attention knew better. It was a blockade. 3 weeks ago, Mexican customs officials launched what they called enhanced checks on farm equipment at the Laredo and Nogales ports. But this wasn't routine. It was a targeted strike. Over 140 John Deere machines were held back, none allowed to cross, while other brands like Case IH and Kubota passed with ease. The message was unmistakable. This wasn't random enforcement. It was strategic. It was personal. And it hit John Deere in its most vulnerable spot. The timing was brutal. Mexico's planting season was just weeks away. Fields sat empty. Farmers, who had already paid for equipment, stood by helplessly as deadlines passed and their soil dried. This wasn't just about money. For many, it was a matter of survival. And John Deere's silence only made things worse. Publicly, Mexican officials used the language of bureaucracy, safety checks, national compliance, routine inspections. But behind closed doors, it was clear something deeper was going on. This wasn't about one bad deal, it was payback, years in the making. For over a decade, resentment toward John Deere had been building. Yes, the tractors were innovative, but they were locked behind layers of proprietary software. Farmers couldn't repair their own machines. A $50 fix turned into a $500 charge just to access a screen, before you even factored in labor, parts, or the wait for an authorized technician. In remote areas of Mexico, this wasn't just frustrating, it was devastating. In just 5 years, over 300 documented farm failures were linked to repair delays and equipment downtime. One farmer lost his entire season because his tractor was stuck just 10 meters across the US border and couldn't be delivered in time. Another lost everything after a simple sensor failure triggered a software lock that only a dealer 200 kilometers away could override. Then came the leaked documents. "We did the digging, so you didn't have to." Internal memos, corporate communications, everything. What they revealed shattered any remaining trust. Deere's downfall didn't start with hardware. It started with arrogance. When Mexico stopped those tractors, John Deere's stock didn't just dip, it nosedived. The day began with flat trading. By midday, shares were in free fall. By the end of the week, the company had lost over 27% of its market value, its worst week in 185 years. $14 billion evaporated. Analysts blamed border issues, but this wasn't about customs. It was about exposure. Deere's entire business model hinged on one thing: control over diagnostics, repairs, parts, and service. And now, Mexico had ripped that control away. More than $1 billion in annual equipment sales and $2 billion in parts and service revenue were frozen. Inventory piled up in Sinaloa. Late delivery penalties hit in Monterrey. Credit ratings took a dive. Both Moody's and S&P issued negative outlooks. Inside Deere HQ, panic erupted. Liquidity forecasts were slashed. Burn rate estimates hit $370 million per week. But the real explosion wasn't on Wall Street, it was in the fields. In Kansas, lifelong customer Michael Peterson summed it up: 30 years of loyalty, gone over a single invoice. That invoice? A $500 charge to clear a diagnostic code that took 5 minutes to identify. That was his breaking point, and he wasn't alone. In Nebraska, the state's largest agricultural cooperative canceled all future John Deere orders. $40 million reallocated overnight to Case IH and New Holland. Their public statement said it all. "We support companies that support farmers. the American Farm Bureau Federation, representing over 6 million farming families, issued a rare and harsh criticism demanding that full right to repair laws be implemented worldwide. They also commended Mexico for forcing John Deere to finally pay attention. This struggle wasn't just about economics, it was deeply symbolic. These weren't tech activists, but hard-working farmers who once proudly wore John Deere hats, now leading a revolt. Online forums exploded with guides on bypassing Deere's software protections. Farmer-led coalitions quickly formed, and the anger was no longer quiet. It became organized, strategic, and very loud. In early spring, 72 farmers from Minnesota filed a class-action lawsuit accusing John Deere of monopolistic practices that locked farmers into an expensive closed ecosystem of parts, tools, and service fees. While the legal system moved slowly, farmers found another weapon: technology. Communities that once focused on farming techniques became hubs for rebellion. Membership in unauthorized repair forums surged over 300% within 6 weeks. Tools like cracked software, firmware unlockers, and diagnostic bypass kits emerged, with the centerpiece being Green Ghost, a downloadable patch that bypassed Deere's locks, cleared fault codes, and gave control back to the farmers. One Iowa farmer called it digital liberation. This movement also gave rise to a grey market of rogue repair technicians, some former Deere employees, making discreet house calls for cash and anonymity. Then came the biggest blow. Leaked internal documents surfaced on an encrypted forum via a Dropbox link. 64 pages titled Revenue Enhancement Through Service Exclusivity revealed a deliberate strategy to boost profits by restricting repair access. Former engineer Thomas Wilson, who worked on Deere's 8 and 9 series tractors, admitted chilling truths. They built the machines not for reliability, but for profit. Sensors were programmed to trigger total shutdowns, vague error codes were intentional, and executives planned to maximize farmer dependency during critical harvest times when they had no choice but to pay. Internal emails showed this cynical approach plainly. If it fails in May, they'll pay by June. Every 10% increase in repair revenue meant an extra $350 million for Deere. Farmers were not customers, they were prey. Trust turned to fury. Former Deere service manager Robert Johnson added fuel to the fire by exposing seasonal elasticity, planning a tactic to hike repair costs during peak harvest when farmers could least afford downtime. Repairs costing $500 in February could soar to $1,500 by August. Critical parts like sensors and modules were classified as restricted, only available through authorized dealers. Farmers lost not just money, but entire harvests. John Deere denied all allegations, but internal documents, pricing models, and memos told a different story. Terms like storm pricing, drought escalation, and maximum extraction were used internally. Meanwhile, Deere's rivals pounced. Case IH launched its Open Farming initiative, offering full diagnostic access, no dealer lockouts, and unrestricted repairs. Within 2 weeks, Case reported its highest order volume since the recession. Kubota followed with its Farmer First campaign, promoting open-source platforms, custom software, and total control. Even Mahindra pledged to triple its U.S. dealer network within 18 months. Their message was clear: half the cost, full control. This strategy caused cracks in Deere's dealer network. Over 140 dealerships began talks to switch brands, and within just 1 month, 37 signed letters of intent to jump ship. One Minnesota dealer put it plainly and powerfully: "I won't sell shackles." This statement captured the growing defiance among farmers and dealers alike. They refused to support a system that locked them into overpriced, restricted access to essential farming equipment. But this was only the beginning of what would become a much larger crisis. Then came the second disaster, one that sent shockwaves far beyond just the farming community. 77% of North America's winter vegetables rely heavily on farming regions in Mexico. These regions supply critical crops like tomatoes, peppers, lettuce, and avocados. When John Deere's machines were suddenly blocked at the border, those fields missed their crucial planting windows. In just 10 days, an astonishing 1.7 million acres of farmland lay unplanted. The consequences were immediate and severe. Tomatoes, peppers, lettuce, and avocados, crops that millions depend on, were left unharvested, leading to escalating financial losses day by day. The impact rippled across markets. Futures contracts surged uncontrollably. Tomato prices skyrocketed by 47%, and avocado prices jumped so rapidly that exporters had to halt pricing altogether to avoid chaos. Major food companies and grocery giants, General Mills, Kraft Heinz, and others, issued urgent alerts warning of disruptions in the seasonal supply chain. This catastrophic collapse wasn't caused by weather or natural disaster. It happened because a company lost control over its own machinery. John Deere's equipment was the linchpin of this entire supply system, and when Mexico blocked those machines, the entire chain began to unravel. But the most startling revelation wasn't public yet. It remained hidden behind closed doors until diplomatic cables leaked. Mexico's blockade was more than a protest. It was a calculated negotiation tactic, a full-scale economic ultimatum aimed directly at John Deere. The Mexican government's demands were unprecedented and clear: full right to repair for all Deere equipment operating within Mexico, meaning no more software locks or exclusive dealer controls. They also demanded a reparations fund to compensate for lost crops, a technology transfer agreement to empower local mechanics with knowledge and tools, and government oversight to regulate parts pricing during emergencies. This bold move blindsided Washington. Deere's powerful lobbyists, who had spent $5 million the previous year trying to influence lawmakers on Capitol Hill, scrambled to contain the fallout. But by then, the damage was done. This wasn't merely a trade dispute anymore. It was a tectonic shift in power dynamics over who controls critical agricultural technology and for how long. Before we dive deeper, please hit that subscribe button to show your support for the channel. Farmers had been waiting years for a moment like this. When Mexico made its decisive move, farmers everywhere rallied behind it. As John Deere's once mighty empire begins to fracture, the world is waking up to a harsh truth. When farmers rise up, the entire system starts to crack. And at the heart of it all is something fundamental: food itself. Our most basic necessity has suddenly become the front line in a battle no one expected, but everyone will feel. The fight has only just begun. American farmers have long depended on a stable, skilled workforce to plant, tend, and harvest crops. Much of this labor force includes undocumented immigrant workers who fill critical roles that many local workers are unwilling or unable to take due to the physically demanding and seasonal nature of farm work. However, political moves and immigration policies, like threats of deportations or stricter enforcement, have created major uncertainty and anxiety. Farmers worry that if these workers are suddenly unavailable or harder to hire, it will lead to delays in planting and harvesting, directly affecting crop yields and farm income. Economic pressures. Tariffs and trade wars. Trade tensions, especially between the US and China, have severely impacted American farmers. Many agricultural products, such as soybeans, corn, pork, and wheat, are major exports to China. Increased tariffs and retaliatory trade measures have made these exports less competitive or even unviable, leading to surplus crops that farmers cannot sell abroad. This creates a surplus in the domestic market, driving prices down and causing financial strain on farmers who depend heavily on export markets. Equipment, access, and repair issues. Farmers rely heavily on modern, sophisticated machinery like tractors, harvesters, and planters to manage large-scale operations efficiently. But many of these machines are equipped with proprietary software and require authorized dealers for repairs. This dependence on manufacturers like John Deere for diagnostics, repairs, and parts often leads to costly delays, especially in rural areas where dealer access is limited. If a machine breaks down during a critical planting or harvest window, farmers can lose entire seasons. The right to repair movement has emerged because many farmers want to be able to fix their own equipment or use independent mechanics, without restrictions, but corporate policies and software locks prevent that. Financial stress and market volatility. Farming is inherently risky due to unpredictable factors like weather, pests, and fluctuating commodity prices. Many farmers operate on thin margins and often take out loans or mortgages to invest in land, equipment, and inputs. When market prices fall due to tariffs or oversupply, or when costs rise sharply, farmers face serious financial stress. This financial squeeze can lead to farm closures, especially for smaller family-run operations. The consolidation of farmland and agribusiness continues, often pushing out independent farmers. Seasonal and physical demands. Farm work is extremely demanding physically and mentally. Planting and harvest seasons involve long hours, often under harsh weather conditions. Delays caused by labor shortages, equipment failures, or trade issues compound the pressure on farmers to complete tasks within narrow timeframes. The stress affects farmers' mental health, contributing to a higher risk of depression and suicide in rural farming communities. Technological shifts and adaptation. Many farms are adopting new technologies, drones, GPS-guided tractors, precision agriculture, to increase efficiency and reduce waste. However, these technologies often require capital investment and technical know-how. Small-scale farmers can find it hard to keep up, further widening the gap between large agribusiness and family farms. Climate change and environmental challenges. Farmers are increasingly facing unpredictable weather patterns, droughts, floods, and shifting growing seasons due to climate change. This adds another layer of uncertainty and risk to crop production and livestock management. Summary: in short, American farmers today work under a mix of uncertainty, financial pressure, technological dependence, and physical hardship. They face challenges from labor shortages caused by immigration policy, economic damage from tariffs and trade wars, repair restrictions on their equipment, and unpredictable environmental conditions. Despite these hurdles, many farmers are resilient and fiercely committed to maintaining their livelihoods and food production. Farmers are increasingly vocal about their struggles. What was once quiet frustration has turned into active rebellion in some regions. They've publicly criticized policies and corporations that they feel are squeezing them financially and limiting their independence, especially around equipment repair restrictions and unfair pricing. The right to repair. Movement. One of the biggest reactions has been the surge in support for the right to repair movement. Farmers have been advocating for laws and policies that allow them to repair their own equipment or use independent mechanics without restrictions. This movement has gained momentum as farmers share stories of expensive, time-consuming repairs, forced by proprietary software locks from companies like John Deere. Online forums and farmer-led coalitions have sprung up, sharing guides and hacks to bypass repair restrictions. This grassroots digital activism has become a form of resistance. Legal actions and class action lawsuits. Farmers have also taken legal steps. For example, in Minnesota, groups of farmers filed class action lawsuits accusing manufacturers like John Deere of monopolistic practices that trap them in costly closed repair ecosystems. While legal processes can be slow, these lawsuits signal a rising willingness to fight back through formal channels. Switching brands and suppliers. As trust in certain manufacturers erodes, many farmers have started switching to brands that offer more open repair policies and better support. Competitors like Case IH, Kubota, and Mahindra have capitalized on this by promoting open farming initiatives with full diagnostic access and no dealer lockouts. Some dealerships themselves are jumping ship, with dozens leaving John Deere to represent other brands. Organized protests and work stoppages. In some areas, farmers have organized protests, including equipment blockades or strikes, to draw attention to their demands. These protests sometimes disrupt supply chains and local markets, highlighting their critical role in food production and the economy. The tractor blockades at key border points between the US and Mexico exemplify this direct action approach. Increased collaboration and solidarity. Farmers are building stronger networks locally and globally. They are forming coalitions, sharing resources, and coordinating their responses to common issues. This collective approach strengthens their negotiating power and amplifies their voices. Turning to technology and grey markets. Some farmers have embraced unauthorized grey market repair options, including hiring rogue technicians or using cracked software to bypass restrictions. While risky, this reflects their desperation and determination to maintain control over their operations. Political lobbying and advocacy. Farmer organizations like the American Farm Bureau Federation are ramping up lobbying efforts to push for legislative reforms supporting labor stability, trade protections, and right to repair laws. They're also engaging in dialogue with policymakers to seek relief and support. Emotional and mental toll. Many farmers express feelings of betrayal, anger, and exhaustion. The combination of financial hardship, political uncertainty, and corporate control has taken a toll on their mental health. Yet, their resilience shines through as they continue to fight for their livelihoods. American farmers are currently facing intense challenges that threaten their livelihoods and the broader food supply chain. These difficulties stem from a combination of economic pressures, such as tariffs and disrupted trade, workforce uncertainties, due to immigration policy changes and restrictive practices by major agricultural equipment manufacturers. At the heart of the conflict is the right to repair issue. Companies like John Deere have locked their machinery behind proprietary software, forcing farmers to rely exclusively on authorized dealers for repairs, often at high costs and long delays. This has sparked widespread frustration among farmers, who see these restrictions as a form of control that limits their independence and increases their expenses. In response, farmers have launched a strong and multifaceted reaction. Grassroots activism. From sharing repair hacks and software workarounds online to forming coalitions and organizing protests, farmers are taking matters into their own hands. Legal action. Class action lawsuits have been filed accusing manufacturers of monopolistic behavior. Switching brands. Many farmers and dealerships are moving to competitors who offer more open and affordable repair options. Work stoppages. Equipment blockades at key border crossings have disrupted supply chains, highlighting farmers' crucial role. Political advocacy. Farmer organizations are lobbying for laws supporting repair rights and trade stability.